Today I'm going to show you how to make a file server out of a Raspberry Pi 4 and external USB hard drive, and it will allow us to stream a whole movie library over the network.
Nico knows tech, all your tech tips and reviews on deck. Nico knows tech, #1 channel with the news on deck.
So I just moved to Costa Rica from the United States, and my big file server with 10 hard drives and all the bells and whistles is still on its way over here, arriving by ship. So in the meantime, I need to make a file server with some movies that I already saved to this 5 terabyte USB hard drive as a backup. I want to be able to stream until my stuff gets here, so we're going to make a smaller server that will still do the job for us. So what we're going to need today are a few things. Now the first thing we're going to need is, of course, a Raspberry Pi. And in this case, we're going to be using a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B 4 GB. There's also a 1 GB, 2 GB, 4 GB, and even an 8 GB. 8 GB is a bit overkill, but if you want to go and get that, it'll work just fine. In this case, we're going to use the 4 gig. And I do recommend that you get a kit because it's going to come with the case, the fan. I'll put some links in the description. It'll also include a USB adapter for SD cards, because this thing does run off of an SD card, which is like its hard drive. So, and also it include a power adapter. I'll put links for good kits because you do want all of this. If you get just the board, it's going to be this little credit card, sexy little computer, but there's going to be no case, no power adapter. You're going to have to buy everything separately, so it does kind of add up. So you might think you're saving by buying everything separate, but truth be told, you actually might have a hard time finding a Raspberry Pi 4 directly. They might only be available in kits because of the chip shortage. So also we are going to need a USB storage device. Now you don't have to go with a hard drive. You can go with a thumb drive. You could go with an external SSD. Those are actually work very good. In fact, I'll make some videos on using these as full computers with SSD storage, but that's for another video. Then of course we're also going to need our power adapter, because this is going to power our USB-C here, which is going to power the computer. And if you're not familiar with the Raspberry Pi 4, just let me know in the comments and I'll make another video. But this video is intended for people who already kind of have a little bit of a grasp on Raspberry Pi 4. Now, once you have your Raspberry Pi 4 and it's fully assembled and it's in its case, or if it's just ready the way you're happy with it, if you didn't go with a case and you're just going to go with it bare and open, but as long as you're ready to get started, you want to go ahead and grab your SD card. You can use whatever size you want. You want a 16 gig or bigger. You don't have to get a 64 gig, but these are so inexpensive now. You don't need to get a particularly fast one. I just got a SanDisk Extreme, which was cheap and on Amazon. I'll put links to it. If you're not running like a desktop OS or something that needs a lot of speed, then you don't have to spend a lot. This is going to be just a file server, and it's really not going to benefit from faster SSDs. So once you have that, go ahead and put that in your USB SD card reader. You might not have this Anchor one. I'll put links to this one if you want a really fast one. This one's fast, and I flash a lot of SD cards, and it saves me 5 minutes, but you can just use the one that comes with the kit. So go ahead and insert that into your adapter, and then we're going to go ahead and plug this into our PC. The next thing we're going to need is Raspberry Pi Imager, which you can get here at the link in description. Once you get here to this website, you'll go ahead and download the version that goes to your operating system. If you're doing this on a Mac, you'll go with the Mac OS. Also, there's Linux versions. The Ubuntu x86, I think that will also work on most Debian-based Linux versions. But for this one, we're going to go ahead and use the Windows, and I already have it downloaded and installed. So we're going to open up Raspberry Pi Imager, and you'll see this little window pop up. First, we're going to choose OS, and since we're using a Raspberry Pi 4, which has a 64-bit processor and 4 gigs of RAM, we can actually benefit from the 64-bit Raspbian OS or Raspberry Pi OS, and we're going to go down here we went down here to choose OS, and then we scrolled down to Raspberry Pi OS Other, and then we scrolled down again, and we're going to use Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit. Now the difference between Lite and the regular is that the regular has a graphic user interface, which you can point and click with a mouse. The Raspberry Pi OS Lite is headless, and that's what we want because we don't want our Raspberry Pi wasting resources on a graphic user interface that we're never going to use. So you'll select the Lite 64-bit, and then choose storage. We're going to select our SD card, making sure it's the correct one. Then we're going to click the settings wheel down here, and then the first thing we're going to do is enable SSH. This will allow us to remote into our server to make it into a file server without having to have a mouse, keyboard, and a monitor. So then we'll set username and password, and we're going to select a password. Just remember this because we will have to type it in. and then you can configure your LAN if you want. If you're going to connect this directly to your network through the gigabit Ethernet, don't bother with this. But for this demonstration, we're going to do this over Wi-Fi because not a whole lot of channels have talked about doing this over Wi-Fi. So we're going to go ahead and connect this, and you go ahead and put your Wi-Fi password here, and you can select your wireless LAN country. I'm in Costa Rica, so we're going to go up here to CR. And yours might be US, depending on your country. There's CR. And then we're going to click Save. Then finally, we can click Write. Now it is going to erase everything on the card, and it's going to image it to where it is Raspberry Pi OS 64 Lite. And from there is where we'll be able to convert this into a file server. So once this is done, we'll go to the next step. Once it's complete, you can go ahead and remove your USB adapter, which has your SD card in it, and go ahead and remove the SD card. And now we're ready to put it into our Raspberry Pi 4, which the slot is on the bottom. Go ahead and insert that nice and secure. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug in my USB hard drive. You don't have to plug it in at this time, but I'm going to go ahead. So I'm going to plug that in. You can be plugging in your USB flash drive, whatever you're going to be storing movies on or files that you want to access over the network. So we have that connected, and since we're going to be doing this over Wi-Fi, we don't have to connect our gigabit here. But if you were going to be using over gigabit, which is actually the most recommended way, I'm just not demonstrating that because everyone else has already talked about that. But you go ahead and take this over to your router and plug it in somewhere, and then connect this to the back of your router or switch. So after that, we can go ahead and plug in our USB-C cable, and that will actually boot up the Raspberry Pi 4. You'll see the LED lights come on, and that means that it's on. Then give it a couple minutes, and then we can go to the next step. Now we need to remote control our Raspberry Pi 4 over the network, and to do that we're going to use an SSH client called Putty, which you can get right here at the link in description. And the first one here, the 64-bit, that's what most of you will use if you're on Windows. There's also the ARM version, the 32-bit version if you're using like Windows XP, Windows 7 with less than 4 gigs of RAM, you might be using 32-bit, and there's also Linux versions. I already have the Windows version installed right here, and the first thing you're going to need to enter is the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. Now to obtain this, you can do a number of things. If you have ESET like I do, you can use the network analyzer, or you could log into your router or use Angry IP Scanner. Most of you will probably just log into your router to obtain the IP address. Once you have that, we'll go ahead and enter it. I'm going to go ahead and put 168.18.29, and then once you have that, hit enter. And then for login is going to be Pi. And the password is what you created when you first flashed Raspberry OS. So we're going to go ahead and enter that. And then we are logged into the terminal of our Raspberry Pi. And from here you could do a number of things, but since we're going to be converting this into a file server or a NAS, we're actually going to go somewhere else. Now with Putty still open, you're going to go ahead and open your browser and go to the link in description right here on GitHub. You're going to scroll down to where it says wget script, and you're just going to click this copy icon, and then you're going to click down and open Putty again. It should be still here on the terminal, and then you can right click and it will paste it for you. For you savvy users, you can also hit Shift Insert at the same time to do a copy paste from a Linux terminal, but you could just right click and it'll work also. After you see this here, go ahead and hit enter. Now right now it is converting our Raspberry Pi OS into OpenMediaVault. OpenMediaVault version 6 is a NAS operating system which is specifically optimized for small media servers. So this is perfect for Raspberry Pi OS, and they've really done a lot. You can go here to openmediavault.org and read all about it. But that's what we're going to be using today. And if you look in the terminal, it's just installing everything. This could take 5 to 10 minutes, usually about 5 minutes. So we'll come back after this is done installing. Now you'll know it's done installing when it says network setup rebooting. Essentially it's already disconnected from you, so you can go ahead and close Putty. Then you'll open up a browser and then you'll enter the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. And that should be the same IP address, but depending on your network it may have changed. So you might need to log into your router and find the IP address after it's rebooted into OpenMediaVault. Give it about 5 minutes to reboot, and then go ahead and try and enter it here into the address. And once you enter it, it'll appear like this. And for username is going to be admin. And then for password is going to be OpenMediaVault, all one word. And once you get to the dashboard here, we're going to go ahead and set up our dashboard. And we want CPU utilization, file systems in a grid, load average, memory. You don't have to do this part, but it's nice information. Go ahead and put smart, services in a grid, system information, system time, and updates available. Then we'll go ahead and click save, and it's going to give us a nice little interface here, tell us what's going on with our Raspberry Pi 4. We can also add a widget that will tell us the CPU temperature, which is a nice feature. Next thing, we're going to go over to System, then Workbench, and we're going to go down here to the auto logout. We want to change this to 1 day because you might be working and doing things and adding things and you don't want it constantly logging you out. So we'll go ahead and click save. Whenever you click save, you're going to have to update down up here. It's going to ask you if you're sure you want to do it. So then we have to click this check mark and click yes. Next, we're going to go over to date and time. Make sure that this is set to the correct time zone. I am in the Americas, Costa Rica. Actually, it might be, let's see how they have it set up here. Costa Rica. If you're in the United States, of course, America, they'll have Chicago, different time zones for you. And then we can leave the rest there and click save. And every time you click save on something, you are going to have to apply them up here. So we're going to go ahead and click apply. Next, we're going to go to update management over here on the left. And then we're going to click on updates. And then this little magnifying glass, which is going to search for updates. It's always a good idea to make sure you have the most updated version and patches of any operating system you're using, including OpenMediaVault. Oftentimes, if you have some complaint about something not working correctly, chances are you're not the only one and it gets patched relatively quickly. So it's a good idea to check for updates regularly. And under settings, you can check if you want pre-release updates, kind of like betas, and community maintained if you're really into the community and you want to be able to use updates that the community has made. For this video, I'm not going to recommend that. I would recommend that for power users. So next, we're going to go down to plugins. Now, plugins lets us add things that are not already in OpenMediaVault. So things like that CPU temperature I told you about. This will let us see on the dashboard. We'll click here to install, confirm, and click yes. And it's going to tell us the CPU temperature up in the dashboard. Since it doesn't do that by default, we're adding that with a plugin. Once it says end of the line, that means it is fully installed. We can go ahead and close. Now if we open our dashboard again and then go to user settings, then dashboard, we can actually add CPU temp. This checkbox is now here. Go to the bottom, click save. And then we should have CPU temperature down here. If you would like to have it moved up to the top, I'll show you a little trick. We'll go into user settings, dashboard, and then we'll uncheck everything. Every single one of them. Then click save. We've cleared the dashboard, except CPU temp is there. And we'll go to dashboard again. And then CPU utilization, file systems in a grid, load average, memory. You can go grid or table. This is just my preference. Smart. We don't have sensors. We'll go ahead and add services in a grid. System information, system time, updates available, and why not uptime, just in case you want to track if you've had a reboot unexpectedly. We'll go ahead and click save. Now CPU temp is on top. It's kind of in the order that you've checked them. All right. Now it's time to add our storage. Now we'll go ahead and click on the left, storage, and then we're going to go to disks. And it does find my 5 terabyte hard drive. So we're not going to do anything there. If you need to wipe the drive, go ahead, but I already have 4.5 terabytes of movies, so I do not want to wipe the drive, so I'm going to go ahead and skip here. If you need to format a drive, you could do it here. So the next thing I'm going to go down to is file systems. So we're going to add all of those files on that hard drive as a mountable drive that we can share. So we're going to mount. I'm going to select a file system. And it's this NTFS 4.5 terabyte. That's my external drive. And then you can set the warning threshold to whatever you want. I'm going to set it to 95 because it's already at 85 and I don't want to get a bunch of notifications. I already know it's full. Then we'll click save. And it says, do you really want to mount the file system? This isn't going to hurt anything. It's just saying, do you really want to basically connect it to the server? So we're going to click yes. and it says that it's online. Next, we're going to go down to shared folders. And since we do want to share these movies over my network, sorry, we forgot. We got to click apply up here. Okay, now we can click this plus sign here, and we're going to add a shared folder. We're going to call it movies because we want this to be obvious to everyone on the network, whether it's my wife, my kids, my friends, and they're using a smart TV and they're navigating through this. So obviously this is the movies folder. We're going to select a file system as that hard drive. It's this one, 4.47 terabyte. And we're going to leave it the path as movies. And then very important here, by default it's going to have permissions set up to where administrators have full access, but we want to set this to everyone read and write. Now you wouldn't want to do this on if you're setting up a network drive that's for business and has personal documents, because everyone that's on the network can access it. But since this is movies, I don't care if everyone can watch my Marvel movies collection. That's what it's for. And I don't want to have smart TVs needing to enter a username and password in order to access everything. So we want this to be kind of dumb and just open for everything. So we're gonna go ahead and click everyone read write and then save. And then we're gonna need to click apply up here to confirm it. Click the check mark to apply. Yes, we want to configure changes. And we're going to go over to services, and then here's all the services that are available out of the box, such as FTP if you want to start an FTP server, NFS if you want to take advantage of Linux's ultra fast file transfer. But since we're going to be using this to stream to Windows PCs and smart TVs and more dumb devices, we're going to go ahead and activate SMB settings. First, we're going to enable it. And then you could enable user home directories, but they're not enabled right now. We're not going to touch that right now. Then we'll just click save. And then we're going to click up here to apply. And this is to start the SMB service. And this will allow us to add shared folders that can be shared over SMB or over Windows file sharing. And then we're also going to do a few other tweaks that let it be easier to spot by smart devices. All right, once that's done, we're going to click over on shares on the left. Then the plus to create, because we're going to create an SMB share from that shared folder we created earlier. We're going to select it, it's movies, and then down here where it says public, no, change that to guests only, because this is going to be accessible by everybody. If you don't change this, then it's not going to be public, it's not going to be browsable, so very important, change that to guests only, and then check inherit ACLs. What this is going to do is that instead of just the main directory being browsable, but all of the subdirectories having different permissions, this is going to make sure that the folders within folders and files within folders are also accessible. So after you've done that, scroll down to the bottom and click save. And then it's going to have us confirm again. Click yes. All right, and then it's done. Now at this point, SMB is fully set up, so you can actually open up File Explorer and then go down to Network, and you should find Raspberry Pi discoverable right here. So you could click on it, and then you'll see your movies folder, and I have all my movies here fully accessible, and you can actually right click right here and then map the drive so that it's saved, and then it's always here on the left. It's under my C drive. You can move it around, but I have it right here and I can just access it there. But we're not going to stop there because we have smart devices and TVs and other streaming platforms, so we're going to add a DLNA server by going up to System, then Plugins, and here in the search type DLNA, and it'll take us to mini DLNA. And this is going to make it super simple for smart TVs and Amazon Fire Sticks and Rokus and everything to just find it. So we're going to click on it and then click install, then confirm and click yes. Now it's installing the mini DLNA server. And once it reaches the end of the line, you go ahead and click close. Then it's going to refresh OpenMediaVault. And then we got to go to services again because now we have a DLNA server. So go over here to services, then mini DLNA. Check the settings just to make sure. We're going to enable the server. And if you have a TiVo, you can go ahead and click here if you want to stream from a TiVo. I don't have a TiVo, so we're going to go ahead and skip that. The rest we can leave alone and then click save. We're going to have to confirm at the top. Click the check mark and then yes. All right, and then it's done. And congratulations, we've fully set up our Raspberry Pi 4 OpenMediaVault media server so that we can stream movies over the network with ease. We can access it through File Explorer and copy and paste things from downloads or videos and back over, and we can use this as a backup as well. And then with our DLNA server, we can also access it very easily from streaming devices such as iPads, phones, or smart TVs. So yeah, we're all set up. I hope you found this video helpful. If you like it, please click like and consider subscribing, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time.